Thank you, everyone, and welcome back to the House Committee on General and Housing. And today is still Thursday, April 24th. And we are now working again on S-127, that's the housing bill that came over from the Senate and is likely to end up being the vehicle by which into which all the stuff is. So at the outset, I wanted to tell you, remember the material on development dirt?
Yep.
That we decided really belonged over, or at least we wanted to know what the Environment Committee thought of it. They considered it at some length. They took testimony and they informed us that the language that is in the bill, that was in the Senate bill, is fine, word for word. So that's there. There may be other matters that pertain to what's happening in the Commerce Committee on which they may express opinions. I think the matters in the Commerce Committee may come to us as early as next Tuesday. We're scheduling time for it. I hope it's there. I don't know if we will see either tax stabilization or assessment district language. I just don't know that we will. Cameron, as I remember, in terms of 127, we discussed just now, we had a brief discussion on the universal design study and whether or not the study would survive federal administration cuts that might make it difficult for some members to participate. And as I understand, the conclusion was that, first of all, that if someone couldn't participate, the study goes on as long as a majority of the membership is present. And second of all, there are per diems to help fund people who attend. I mean, if an entire agency is eliminated, then I suppose it's possible that the member who was to be assigned would not attend, and they just wouldn't attend. The next issue that we had a brief testimony on this morning, in which this committee has shown a great attachment to. Whether I would characterize it as a rational attachment, I'm not sure. However, attachment it is. And that is, you will find on page 11 of the 38 pages, the ranking in the Vermont Department of Finance and Management. And I'm going to take the liberty of reprising the testimony we have heard. One person, the individual who's probably going to be administering this, Michael Gaughan, testified that it was okay with him as long as it said or successor index or something like it. He just wanted more flexibility. In addition to the flexibility that comes from the fact that it's just one of 6 things he has to consider. The second testimony we received was from Charlie Baker. No, from the Vermont
The RPCs?
the
That's
RPC,
Charlie Baker.
Charlie Baker,
Yeah.
who admitted finally that he just didn't like it as a ranking. The
He
third,
said specifically though, because he's like, we tend to not be able to work with anybody near the top of the list.
yeah, and he said that we didn't think the list was accurate. It's an elusive subject and not easily reducible to an index that's driven by an algorithm, by a formula, a computer formula.
And that it wasn't updated
And
annually.
it wasn't updated. The third piece of evidence that we received today was
Doug Farnham.
Doug Farnham. And you all heard Doug, I mean, he said that it isn't updated now, but it would be if there was more appropriation to it. And I don't know whether the Senate has appropriated any money. The House didn't. But he said that it would be easy to update. So that is, and also one of the points made was that it's intrinsically unclear how you would use the ranking, since it's unclear what a highly ranked versus not highly ranked means. So what, may I ask, is the pleasure of the committee on this matter?
Second, sorry.
Yes.
Thinking of the comments this morning about, does a high rank mean your project is preferable or hazardous? And I'm wondering if leaving that use to the discretion of the body making this call, it may be perfectly appropriate, because in some cases they might be looking at, they really need help. They have everything else kind of in order. Let's give them help. They might look at this and say, you're highly ranked and it's a complete disaster. So I can understand that where you fall in the ranking may be a positive or a negative
It might be.
consideration, and legitimate.
I agree with
So
that.
I think, letting them decide, is this a good or a bad indicator as we consider the weight of everything else, probably more useful to them making the decision.
Yes,
Does the index contain more than just a number? Like,
it's just a list.
it's just a list with
ranking.
no,
Yeah, it starts one and goes down to, I don't know how many.
yeah. Okay, so it's not like there's notes that say like they were,
No,
high on this,
nothing,
low on this,
no,
da, da, da.
nothing like that.
and they said that you get to the top by having the least resources and the most need.
Yes,
Okay,
well,
that's what he
that's a
said today.
simplification.
Yeah.
In fact, I know that it's like 10 different, it's your size, it's your staff size, it's a whole bunch of stuff.
Oh, was it also the proximity to
Yeah,
a
there was proximity.
university?
Yeah, you got downgraded if
So-
you were proximate to the university because, well, you could use them in theory. It was like that. It's just a whole bunch. It's a computer formula based on all these inputs.
And it could be refined like that.
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Capacity score, need score, average score, and a ranking.
So that's all, you don't see any of those
No,
things based.
You don't see the input.
Yeah,
And at all. And
I feel like it'd be really cool to use it if we could see if you could see
It
some
says
of the. info.
3 tabs.
Oh,
describes what these are.
what the
factors
criteria,
are.
but not what each town, what their findings were for each town.
Apologies, I'm gonna stop
Actually,
sharing
Mary.
for a quick second.
Okay.
Where did you find that? In JFO or?
Takes a minute.
No, I just Googled Vermont Community Index
Okay.
and then, but it. Yeah. Okay, so if you. I just Googled Vermont Community Index and it's the first thing that pops up. When you click on that though, it just takes you here and that's where you download the
Oh, right.
workbook. But there's also, when you look at municipal technical assistance from Department of Finance and Management, they do have this website here, which, provides a little more information for anyone who wants to go look. So
Thank you.
I don't know if there's, So there's a user guide, Representative Dodge, so if you were asking like how some of this stuff is calculated, I haven't read it, I haven't reviewed it, so I don't know how much detail it goes into what they looked at explicitly, et cetera, but it's
You
there.
know, I have a thought here, God forbid. Nothing like thinking.
It's okay, it's the expression of it, but
What if we didn't say the ranking of the community?
simply. the-
What if we just said the applicable components of the Vermont? You know, let them go in there and look and decide what they want to.
Yeah, because there may be other categories of data that are more germane than the final score.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think I agree. That's.
The trouble is that you can't tell what the town's scores or
No,
category, like you
they can
can't tell
just-
how they arrived. at
Well, they
those.
have the 4 categories. I mean, just what we're saying is, I feel like either we take it out or we let them use it and we just don't emphasize the ranking, that final ranking. There's 4 rankings actually. Did you
Right.
see, most people, all they do is look at the total list.
By which point, the margin of error.
The 4 rankings are just capacity, there's really only 2 rankings, they average them, right?
My understanding is they have a capacity index and a needs index, and I'm assuming based on this is the information that goes into the score.
Yep.
Yes. But there's no.
You don't know the
there's no-
results.
Yeah, you don't know whether they got the score based mostly on,
Yeah, and you're not gonna know.
I think we should remove it,
yeah, I
That's what I'm
think it's too.
because I think if you break it down into the components, they won't likely update the list of components. And like 20 years from now, that's.
What, could you go back
We're
to
talking
that
about a law, we're
spreadsheet,
not talking about.
just that big spreadsheet? I'm happy eliminating it.
Have to amend it later on. Didn't he say that it needs? to be
Not that one,
updated as well?
that just shows
The
the
first.
4, yeah. Okay, so it says county capacity score,
Need score.
need score,
And then
average
average.
score.
Just click on a box under.
Like, really doesn't give you
capacity
much
score box to
information.
see if the formula-
Well-
Let's see, what happens if you click on
It
this?
just gives us the numbers.
Just give you the number.
Oh, the formula's not there. Oh, that's useless.
Oh, but that's where I was looking when you go on their website. This is their technical
This is-
documentation, and so this is,
Yeah. Wait.
in theory, this is how they're calculating the math.
For each of the values.
I majored in history, so.
Oh, yeah, you, I get hives just looking at
Okay.
that.
I'm gonna,
To me, it
I'll
says
I'll
it's
speak.
pretty-
Here's why I would support taking it out. It's a very elaborate formula. And the inputs to the formula, I think, there's a lot of judgment as to what's in the formula, and the result of that judgment is that the formula has, in my view, it's like all elaborate formulas. It has anomalies, all kinds of anomalies that show up, things that just make no sense when they run it. And, things like how, they just pick these things and then they give them weights. Well, are the weights good weights or not good weights? They had all these factors and they had to decide how they weight them. The problem with something like that is that the guesswork in the weights, even if you think that the factors are good factors, and they may not be, like, you have a discussion in the room somewhere where someone says, hey, how about if they're within 50 miles of a university? Somebody says, great idea. But nobody says, well, what if the university isn't interested in helping them? Why should that be a factor? Then, and then you just go back and forth. Okay, we'll keep it as a factor. Then you decide, well, what's the weight we gave? 12%. Well, where's that come from? The problem with a lot of this
We rank
modeling
the-
is that all of these uncertainties add up,
The university.
and they're not respected in the final product. In my mind, when you have that level of uncertainty, the final product should be like 3 groups. Group 1 is, all these towns. Group 2 is all these, and an acknowledgement that it could easily be, you could easily slip from one group to the other. There's just a tendency to believe that when you see a numerical ranking, that it's like really the truth, capital T, when all it is just a pyramid of assumptions that have been combined by a formula that is filled with uncertainties. And so I'm just not sure that it's worth it for me.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate and say, and also, I think for the sake here, because what Doug said this morning when asking about how is the number rated, correct me if I'm wrong, the higher they are rated on the index, then the lower the capacity for need, right?
Lower capacity
And greatest need.
And greatest need. So
It's supposed, that's
It's
what we're
supposed-
trying.
we're trying to build,
identify.
right, and so-
What he's saying is the way that
You
you
can't really
arrive at
tell.
that, it's not necessarily reflective of your ranking in the sense, you know.
But I'm thinking, well, can you pull that back up one more time, please? We can see those towns.
The ranking itself.
The chart, thank you. And what I'm saying is also, we're not using only this as a
That's
factor.
true.
And so I think what I'm in my brain is I have a problem where we create all of these things. The state of Vermont implements all of these tools and resources and boards and committees and commissions, and then we don't utilize them. And that feels very problematic for me. And so I feel like if the state of Vermont, right, the agency of administration, in a coordination with Guidehouse, created the Vermont Community Index to evaluate the technical need of municipalities within the state. So it was created for a purpose. So I'm saying, why are we scrapping it? It's not the only indicator that we're using. So I think it's a resource. I'm not saying it should have that. I'm not, again, back with the weights. I'm not saying how much weight it should hold, right? How much gravity should be there. I'm just saying it should be referenced
Well, how
when
about-
looking at this.
How would you feel if it didn't say the ranking of the?
Oh, that
community?
exactly. I'm
What if
fine,
we
take the
just said-
ranking out.
The index.
Yeah,
Because I could easily see, this was designed to help them allocate dollars for very specific purpose, going into a community that didn't have anybody home to get grants and helping them get grants.
Mhm.
What they're doing is something very different, which you pointed out, Tom. What they're doing is looking at balancing how great is the need. And well, if they don't have any capacity, they might not want to lend them money. They just might want to look at the needs, the needs part. And I mean, if they're very high on very, very low capacity, they may want to say, sorry, you can't carry this project out. We're not going to lend you money. So they might just want to look at the capacity. So one simple way to do that, if we want to keep it, is just to say, just reference the
Yeah.
index.
yeah, right, yeah. I'm okay. I mean,
So. I mean, going back to an idea that I think I voiced the last time, we're looking for capacity and need. If number 6 just says the relative need and capacity of the community, period. They can use this index if they choose to. They can use parts of it if they choose to. The regional planning commissions are going to know this information. The League of Cities and Towns is going to know this information. So they can draw from a number of sources to determine that. And I don't want to bind.
To that.
I'm also happy with that.
I'm happy with
frankly,
that. Yeah.
I'm happy with that too, because again, I think that while the index is really great and detailed, I don't think it's gonna stay really great in detail or I think it'll go
Okay,
stale pretty well.
relative need and capacity.
I don't know why it would cost
Right?
more money for the
What
Relative need and capacity of the community.
of the community?
to update it.
Okay, you better jump on that now before someone has another thought. All right,
Thank
now,
you.
wasn't there
Like
one
that.
other issue that we were talking about where we said we had to, I think I cut somebody off because I just didn't want to talk about it. I wanted to get on to
Oh,
PR3.
yeah, it was me. It was the interim report and
Oh,
the
yeah.
question of, and we said we could just call them in if we have testimony, that would also suffice. I mean, and I'm fine with that, I'm fine with that as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, I agree merely because I wish we had money in this, but we
Yeah.
don't, and we don't have money in it. And I don't think the Senate put it in. if we don't have money in it, they're gonna do what they do and we can tell them we want them to. I can't tell them too much more.
I mean, it was a request. All you can do is make a request. People have the right to deny. You can accept or deny an offering.
And if they have got us to do it sooner, they'll do it.
Is there-
Excellent.
And, the
What else was sure left?
short report.
Oh, yeah.
I think we
Right,
did
right.
everything.
Yep, thank you.
And I will talk to Allison about whether they have language that we just haven't heard of, that we want to take up here. Otherwise, I think we're just waiting. You'll produce the next draft, and then we're waiting for what we get.
What you will see in the next draft is I will make this change that we discussed on the bond bank. I will add a subsection that was blank regarding their inter-fund transfers. I will add the development soils into that reserve section. And then presuming, if you want to see that sooner than later, those are easy fixes. But other than that, as soon as we get language from House Commerce related to the TIF pieces, we'll insert that and
But what
if there's
we'll have to
additional
do-
language you all discuss.
Hear it. I mean, we literally are gonna hear it. So.
And just in the meantime, if there are additional
John,
languages, like you said.
you know, they're gonna present it and John has to be there. Yeah, there are issues. There will be issues. I'm not sure what they are. They're the questions of, I mean, I think a concern is that this financing device, can it be used for all housing? Can it be used for commercial development that has only a little bit of housing? How much housing? Can it be used anywhere in the state, or can it only be used in tier one? Does a certain percentage of it have to be used for affordable housing? Can it be used for short-term rental? I mean, there are issues that are being talked about, and we can deal with them or not. And then goes to Ways and Means. I do have one new piece of information, which is it is going to go to appropriations. This bill
Because
is
it
going
initially
to.
had appropriations in it.
Exactly. It doesn't matter. Let's put it this way. If you think the net by which anything going to appropriations is caught is very large. So it's going to go to appropriations.
Did we change any of the appropriations?
No, appropriations changed all the appropriations.
Right.
But,
Is this the chance
but
to
what I said
tell them
is,
to put
even
in?
if we put all that savings language in, you know, only to the extent appropriated, it still has to go to appropriations. I went down there and talked to the chair, and that's what she told.
So if the Senate puts something back,
It's going to appropriations anyway.
but
I
then
think
it goes,
if the-
our appropriations not there. Or
I think if the bill as introduced, regardless of what happens to it afterwards, has an appropriation, it has to go to.
Yes, so our bill, we're gonna do our bill.
Hmm.
We're gonna send it down over to Ways and Means. Then it's gonna go to approps, then it goes to the floor. And then it goes over to the Senate, and if the Senate bill has come over here, at some point, I think it's just gonna be a conference committee where any differences are resolved.
That common?
Yes,
Or the- I'm sure, yeah, okay. I
sure,
mean,
it's
the
possible
T-bill
that when
was-
there's no, if it's only little tiny changes, you just work them out, and don't have a conference. But if it's significant, then you have a conference committee. The disadvantage of a conference committee is you have to convene it and do all that stuff. Also, it concentrates power. Only 3 people from each house are allowed on the conference committee. And I don't know what would happen here. It's up to the speaker. I mean, there's other committees that have had a major role, so I don't know who it would be.
So here's a question.
And that conference committee, those people, the conferees meet, their meetings are open. So like you can attend,
Yeah,
but you're just watching. Oh, you can attend and then you can we take breaks and you can say, oh, you idiot, what are you doing? You know, whatever. You can lobby, but it's a concentration of power.
But here's a question.
Yeah.
So last year, what we had were two conference committees because we kept the Senate's, what we call the DMV bill, separate from our House T bill. And so then they were able to mix the three people. So it gave an opportunity for more.
Yeah, they can mix, but it's only three.
No, but what I'm saying is if we kept our two bills separate,
Yeah.
we kept a House housing bill, if we kept whatever we called 479.
Yeah.
Separate from S-127, there may be a need for two, or an opportunity, if you want to say it that way, for two conference committees.
This is beyond my pay grade.
I'm just saying.
Okay, I don't know, but all I want to say is,
I
the
don't
thing
know if I
about
agree
it,
with it.
yeah, I don't know that that would happen, but all I know
I'm just
is,
saying that it's
yeah,
done.
because these bills
Not
are
saying whether we
identical in
need
their
to.
subject matter. That's the thing, they really are identical in their subject matter.
Well, but they complement.
Yeah, but
But that
they're
doesn't mean you have to
becoming,
fold
they're
them in.
becoming very similar, but
Yeah,
not.
we have
totally.
worked towards,
Yeah,
we have
now-
worked to get them to be one.
But the last word on the conference committee, remember, both an attribute of the conference committee approach, positive and negative, is that once a bill is agreed to, it goes to both houses and it's up or down.
Yeah.
Cannot be amended, cannot be changed. So in a way, sometimes that's an advantage, you know, you're worried about amendments coming from outside the committee. In a way, it's a disadvantage. Once it's done, it's done. And generally, my experience has been that when there's conference committees like over the budget, people they're both happy and unhappy, you know, disappointed.
And they don't necessarily go to roll call. They're really just up or down.
Yeah, it can be roll call.
It can, but it's not common.
Yeah, because it's just up or down. Yeah. Anything else before I mean, I know you guys are hungry for more, but anything else? So tomorrow, before we do the A word, tomorrow, let me make sure that I do what I know Magali is telling me silently, which is refresh. We have the House floor at 9:30. And at this point, we have S-125 again in the afternoon, and a discussion after the floor is, do we have any testimony lined up on 125 yet? Okay, so we'll just have to see how that materializes. Remember, there were requests for more testimony on S-125. I was out of the room, but I know they've been transmitted to Magali. Do you need help from the committee?
No.
Okay. So,
Sorry, do
Yeah,
you,
anything
did you
else?
say why after the floor we have committee discussion, but then we're not doing S-125 till after lunch?
I guess that can be switched, it's just residual from when we were gonna do Prop 3.
yeah, and we don't know also, we don't know, now that we have to take more testimony on 125, which is, I want her to be free to line people up for the morning.
Oh.
That's when they can testify.
Sure.
Also, and we're here, I mean, the floor is at 9:30 and if the floor takes 15 minutes again or 30 minutes, you know, we're here, so.
Sure.
And I think we don't want to draw things out into the afternoon longer than we have to. When is it you're going to be gone in the afternoon?
1 to 3, yeah.
1 to 3, okay. So in some ways, particularly since I wasn't in the room, some of the desire from testimony came from you. I guess all things being equal, morning would be better for S-125, to the extent we control it. And then next week on Tuesday, maybe we're going to be hearing 127 again in the form of what's come over from Commerce. Okay? Any other comments by the committee? You all happy? All right, thank you. We are.